The Roman Empire and its collapse. Before I talk about the Roman Empire, let me talk about the Roman Republic. The Roman Republic was a huge republic with two consuls, or people who were like kings, who had total control over the army. It was a very successful republic, but it collapsed. But why and how did it collapse? They had something called the economic turmoil. The economic turmoil was when the rich captured the poor in various ways, most being captured because of war. There was a huge gap of income between the rich and poor. The captured, which rose up to one-third of the population, were enslaved, and the rich made great profits because they had large estates run by the labor of enslaved people. A large number of them sold their land to the wealthy landowners and went jobless and homeless. Most worked as seasonal migrant laborers in the countryside. They also had something called the military upheaval. The military upheaval was a breakdown of the once loyal military. The generals gained more power by recruiting soldiers from the landless poor. They replaced the citizen soldiers, who were soldiers loyal to the now weak republic. They were paid and were working for their commander only. It was impossible to take over just with power. It was impossible to take over before Julius Caesar came. He was a military leader who joined forces with a wealthy Roman called Crassus and a popular general called Pompey. He was elected consul with the help of the two, then appointed himself governor of Gaul, which is now France. They ruled Rome the next 10 years as a triumvirate, a group of 3 rulers. He appointed himself a dictator for life. This is because he was a genius at military strategy and a strong leader, and he shared all of the hardships of the war, which won his men's loyalty and devotion. He also became popular in Rome because of his success. He was supported by the Senate too. He also worked very hard to reform Rome. He let a lot of people become Roman citizens and expanded the Senate by adding his supporters and friends from several regions, including Italy. He created new jobs and constructed new public buildings for the poor. He increased pay for soldiers and created colonies for people who couldn't own property. His success concerned nobles, and some considered him a tyrant. Nobles were basically afraid of losing their influence. Marcus Brutus, Gaius Cassius, and other important senators plotted his assassination. They stabbed him to death in the Senate chamber on March 15th, 44 BC. Caesar's last words were, "Et tu, Brute," or "even you, Brutus." After his assassination, the empire began. Octavian, Caesar's 18-year-old grandnephew's adopted son, Mark Antony, an experienced general, and Lepidus, a powerful politician, took over Rome in 43 BC and ruled for 10 years as a second triumvirate. Although the second triumvirate were very successful, everything ended in jealousy and violence. Octavian forced Lepidus to retire, and Mark Antony and Octavian became rivals. When Antony went to Egypt while leading troops to Anatolia, he fell in love with Cleopatra. Octavian accused Mark Antony for doing that, and a civil war started. Octavian won the civil war, and the two, who is Cleopatra and Mark Antony, committed suicide. Octavian restored some segments of the Republic and became the unchallenged ruler. He accepted the title of Augustus, which meant exalted one, and he was also the Imperator, which means supreme military commander. And this is how the second triumvirate ended. But after this, Pax Romana, which meant Roman peace in Latin, started. It was a period of peace except for tribes fighting along the borders. It lasted for 207 years, or from 27 BC to 180 AD. At this time, the empire was very big. It was 3 million square miles in area and the population was 60 to 80 million people. 1 million lived in Rome itself. And now, Christianity started. It started with Jesus of Nazareth, who was a Jew who was born in Bethlehem, Judea, sometime around 64 BC. He began his public ministry when he was 30 years old and taught, performed miracles, preached, and did good to people. He taught things such as monotheism and the principles of the Ten Commandments, which were both Jewish ideas. He heavily valued the personal relationship between God and people, and that God can diminish evil and would establish an eternal kingdom for the dead who regret and remorse their sins. Christianity and Jesus became very popular, but the Roman and Jewish leaders grew concerned about their position in the society because Jesus was getting very popular. And this is why they arrested and crucified him. But how did Christianity spread? Christianity did not contradict to the Jewish law, and even though the forms changed over time, it spread slowly but steadily. Paul, an apostle, spread Christianity because he saw a vision of Christ even though he was against Christianity at the time. He saw it while traveling to Damascus, Syria. He wrote epistles in Latin and Greek, which were influential letters which were in Latin and Greek, so it was understood by many. He emphasized that Jesus, the Son of God, died for the people's sins. Although it was very popular, Christians were persecuted. This was because they opposed to the Roman law by refusing to worship Roman gods. Pax Romana, which means Roman peace, began to crumble, and more Christians started to get persecuted. They got imprisoned, exiled, or executed by Romans if they refused to worship Roman deities. Thousands of Christians got killed in circuses. Although many Christians were persecuted, the first emperor who accepted Christianity was Constantine. He fought for leadership in Rome with some help from God, and he reported that he saw an image of a cross, which is a symbol of Christianity, when he was fighting. He ordered his soldiers' shields to put the Christian symbol, and he credited his victory to the help of God. He supported Christianity because he believed that the Christian God helped him win, and this is because he saw the vision of the cross. But why did the Roman Empire collapse? A main reason is because of the barbarian invasion. The barbarian invasion is when the Goths won against Rome in a battle. Another reason is the officials were starting to get corrupt. They bribed and threatened people to achieve their goals, and citizens could not get what they needed. The Roman Empire became less efficient because of this. The wealthy abandoned Rome eventually, which slowly led to the collapse of the Roman Empire. But the main reason for all of this is because the Roman Empire became too big to manage. It became too big to control the whole thing. Even when in peace, communication became difficult, and in conflict, it became even worse. And Romulus Augustulus, a 14-year-old boy who was the last Roman Empire, got ousted by German forces in 476. They lost power in the western half of the empire. Nobody even thought of ruling Rome and its western provinces. The eastern half of Rome became the Byzantine Empire, which flourished for about 1,000 years until it fell to the Ottoman Turks. The Roman Empire collapsed, but its culture, ideas, customs, and institutions influenced the development and today's Western civilization.